more on the ICC decision, we're joined by Tom Maliti. He's been following the trial for the International Justice Monitor from Nairobi. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. We've seen pictures of some celebrations in Nairobi. How indicative are they of the mood across the entire country?
Thank you for having me. The celebrations have primarily been in Eldoret, which is Deputy President William Ruto's hometown, and it's his stronghold. And also Joshua Rapsang has support there. So it's primarily their supporters in Eldoret who have been celebrating. The mood in the rest of the country, if you're a victim of the post-election violence that followed the December 2007 presidential election, is one of disappointment. And if you're not, then it's one of reflection, because this case, stopping where it has stopped, has raised issues of what next for the country.
So you don't feel this decision was ultimately good for Kenya?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question. Could you repeat it again, please?
Was this decision by the ICC ultimately good for Kenya or no?
I would say it's a bit of both, in the sense that it was not good for the country in the sense that there was a lot of hope invested in this particular trial, and this trial going to its logical conclusion, which is the defense presenting its case and the judges making a decision based on all the facts. But it's good for the nation in the sense that it now forces us to pause and think, what do we do next? Because the truth be told, the case before the International Criminal Court only covered one part of the country, and yet the violence that followed the presidential election of 2007 engulfed significant parts of the country that were never part of the International Criminal Court case. Therefore, we will have to go back and relook and see how do we reconcile as a nation, where do we get justice for the victims.
Exactly. It is a question of what you will have to do next, because there will need to be some kind of closure on this issue for those who suffered the violence. How might they be able to get that ultimately?
Well, ultimately is to persevere. Unfortunately, Kenya's had political violence in the lead up to elections since the 1990s. And the victims of the post-election violence of 2007 were the first victims who saw at least a number of cases go to court, whether in Kenya or at the International Criminal Court. Victims of earlier violence are still waiting for justice. So that means that in totality, the search for justice will continue.
So what happens now as far as Kenya's national politics are concerned? Can alliances continue? Do they work?
Well, the alliance of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto will continue. As much as there may have been rumblings and questions raised by different sides of that particular alliance, the alliance generally has remained, has stood as one. And now with this case behind Deputy President Ruto, they will now be able to look forward and begin preparing for the campaigns for the elections next year. So in a sense, this helps clarify things for the alliance.
Okay, Tom Maliti, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us from Nairobi.